Animation is an incredible medium where wondrous worlds can be created and where myths and dreams can come to life. One animation student in particular understands this fact very well and knows just how to utilize animation's potential to its fullest, resulting in some of the most creative and beautiful animated films ever. The studio is Ghibli. Studio Ghibli was founded on June 15, 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki, Isao Takahata, and Toshio Suzuki. Hayao Miyazaki especially plays a big role in the studio's success. He directed and wrote a lot of Ghibli's most iconic films such as Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, and Princess Mononoke, all of which we'll be talking about in further details later on. So why is Ghibli film so beloved by audiences and highly praised by critics? Well, there are many reasons for that, such as the breathtaking animation, the beautiful musical score, and the fantastical yet immersive worlds. But above all, the one thing that makes Ghibli films so special is probably their stories, which manage to convey emotional and thought-provoking themes while also maintaining a whimsical and childlike nature.
Spirited Away is considered by many people to be the Studio Ghibli's most famous film to date. It was released in 2001 in Japan and 2003 in the US. It is also the first non-English animated film to have received the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. The story of Spirited Away takes place in modern-day Japan where the protagonist Chihiro is on the move with her parents. The family got lost and come to a strange park through a long tunnel. The park is filled with restaurants and delicious food, but has no humans inside. As Chihiro's parents start eating the food, she goes looking around and meets Haku, a boy who tells her to go back quickly before sunset. However, when Chihiro comes back, she finds that her parents have become swine. The place is actually reserved for spirits and ghosts, led by a sorceress named Yubaba. To find a way to rescue her parents, Chihiro must now work for Yubaba in her bathhouse. There are three main themes of Spirited Away. The first one is Japanese culture and mythology. The old tradition is considered with respect. A clear approach is that Chihiro, who grows up in the modern lifestyle, still shows her respect to the old traditions, like when she greets the spirits. The second theme is coming of age. Chihiro's name is abandoned when she starts working for the place, and she is renamed Shang. It seems like she has lost her identity and must become mature. Then she overcomes a rite of passage to find back her identity and the continuous past. Meanwhile, she learns how to communicate with other creatures and become braver and more capable. A subtle theme in the film is environmentalism. While working at the bathhouse, Chihiro must give a sting spirit a bath. However, this sting spirit is later revealed to be a river guardian that was defiled by the polluted environment. Finally, the movie is for people who used to be 10-year-old and people who are going to be 10-year-old. It is the connection of generations, for the adults to understand the children and their willing, and for the children to keep the tradition go on.
Howl's Moving Castle was released in 2004. It is based on a similarly named book by Diane Wynne Jones. The story starts in a city where Sophie is cursed and transforms into a 90-year-old woman. Seeking to break the curse, Sophie leaves home and sets off through the countryside. She finds her way towards Howl's castle, where she meets the fire demon Calcifer and strikes a deal with him. Meanwhile, the nation is caught up in a war with the neighboring kingdom. The king summons Howl to fight in the war. Howl is too afraid, however, so he sends Sophie to the king to decline. At the castle, the king's advisor Solomon warns Sophie that he will take Howl's power if he does not fight. While fighting with their own demons, as well as the chaos around them, Howl and Sophie develop not only friendship, but also something deeper. In the end, they not only manage to bring back peace, but also find their own freedom. There are two major themes discussed in the movie. First, metamorphosis. Metamorphosis, either through nature or magic, is one of the major topics in Miyazaki's films. It symbolizes the passage of time, the pollution of the spirit, or an alteration of the balance between humanity and void. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the world of Howl, which is full of people turned into something they are not. Second is identity. Sophie falls into an identity crisis when she's turned into an old woman and reluctantly takes on the role. However, her new appearance reflects what she has always been thinking about herself, that she isn't beautiful, nothing special. Howl as well is so dependent on his handsome face and androgynous looks that the thought of losing his looks is enough to send him into a life-threatening bout of depression. Furthermore, it emphasizes the importance of self-acceptance. It criticizes the focus on physical appearance and the importance put on this one feature. It shows that kindness and compassion play a much greater role than looks could ever do. In addition, it sheds a positive light on growing old, something that people nowadays seem to be afraid of. What Howl's Moving Castle also tries to communicate is an anti-war mindset. The war pictured in the film is politically motivated and showed parallels to the US-led invasion on Iraq. Miyazaki identifies as a pacifist and said he wanted to create a film that he felt would be poorly received in the US. It can be seen as a critique on how the world chooses to deal with our problems. In the movie, Sophie shows that benevolence can change people more than war and subjugation, and it encourages us to think about if our way really is the right one. As Miyazaki once said, "I wanted to convey the message that life is worth living, and I don't think that's changed."
Princess Mononoke, released in 1997, is a great example of Ghibli's not being afraid to tackle more mature and darker themes. The story takes place in Japan during the Muromachi period, where the village of the remote Non tribe Emishi is attacked by a demon. The tribe's last prince, Ashitaka, kills it to protect the village, but got wounded with a curse that will eventually kill him. The village's elder tells Ashitaka that there might be a cure in the western land, and she advises him to travel there and see with eyes unclouded by hate. However, once he leaves the village, he can never return. On his journey, Ashitaka is caught in the conflict between the forest gods and the humans of Irontown, who are destroying the land for industrial works. He also encounters San, a girl raised by the wolf goddess, who hold deep hatred for humans. A central theme in the film is the relationship between human and nature, which is a recurring theme in most of Miyazaki's works. However, the story is not just a straightforward battle between good and evil. The most notable example is Lady Eboshi, the leader of Irontown. At first, she appears like a classic antagonist by ruthlessly destroying the forest for the advancement of her town. However, she is later shown to be a kind leader who is loved by all of her people. She takes in outcasts such as prostitutes and lepers and gives them a home. It is not evil intentions that make Lady Eboshi wage war with the forest, but rather her genuine desire to protect and provide for her people. The humans of Irontown themselves are good-natured and hard-working people who are just struggling to survive and defend their home against other human attackers. Even the nature itself is portrayed in an ambiguous light. At times, it is a calming and peaceful entity, and at others, an unstoppable force to be feared. See with eyes unclouded by hate. These lines at the beginning resonate throughout the entire film. There is no absolute villain or hero in this story because, not unlike reality, the line between good and evil is not always clear-cut, but is often blurred. As director Miyazaki has said in an interview, "When you talk about plants or an ecological system of forests, things are very easy if you decide that bad people ruined it. But that's not what humans have been doing. It's not bad people who are destroying forests, hard-working people have been doing it. This is the complexity in the relationship between humans and nature. And since this is a big theme of this film, I didn't want it to be a story about a bad guy.
While Ghibli's films are childlike, they are far from childish. The films always aim to convey meaningful messages to the young audience, like learning to grow up and overcoming your fear, being kind to others, and being accepting of different ideologies and ways of life. To quote Hayao Miyazaki, "I think that if you are very genuine in doing films for young children, you must aim for their heads, not deciding for them what will be too much for them to handle." What we found was that the children actually understood the movie and what we were trying to say more than adults. I wanted to be honest with the young audience, to tell them that human society is not fundamentally blessed.